Hey now, we are getting over, and I am the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, here to lead you through these hard times. With the WWE edition of your favorite professional wrestling podcast. That's right, Getting Over is back once again, and we are just a couple days removed from WWE Hell in a Cell, but we have a ton to talk about on this WWE edition of the show because almost everything that happened on SmackDown did not have to do with Hell in a Cell. And of course, we already went through the Raw after the latest WWE Premium live event. So we have a full 3-part main event for you, along with the good, the bad, and the ugly as we break everything down on this show. But it would not be an edition of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast if I did not begin by reminding you that this show is all about the fight. So please stop making me ask.
Stop being marks for yourselves and go back to being a mark for me.
Go back to being a mark for the Silver King Adam Silverstein, vintage Chris Vanini. Head on over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave us a 5-star rating on Apple. Also leave a written review. Let people know how much you love this show, why you listen, why you subscribe, and why they should as well. Those ratings and reviews are oh so important for us. Also, please do not forget to follow us on Twitter at Getting Overcast. It was great interacting with all of you during Hell in a Cell, during Raw on Monday night, even though my tweets were delayed because I was out at a friend's birthday dinner. But nevertheless, always great talking to you guys, especially when big news is happening. And of course, interacting with you on our live Twitter Spaces shows as well. So please, please, please don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Getting Overcast. Now, we do have a lot of professional wrestling to talk about on today's show, but there's a bigger topic at hand that I need to address with my co-host, and that is the color of lemon lime Gatorade, which he refers to as yellow. I said, hey, it's more of a green, and we got into this little kind of back and forth that transcended the show, audio form onto Twitter. Many of you agreed with Chris. So, I'm willing to accept when I'm wrong. The problem with that, though, is I'm wrong so infrequently that when something pops up like this, I need to kind of do a little bit of research and see, well, am I wrong or is everyone else wrong and the Silver King is right? And this is a very murky type of situation. But let me break down 2 things for you, Chris. First, something that lends credence to your opinion, and then something that completely flies in the face of it, okay? Lending credence is that Gatorade uses yellow dye in lemon lime Gatorade. Straight up. They put yellow dye in there.
Yellow 5 is the official name. I've got the bottle right here. I'm looking at the ingredients.
That is the dye that they use for the Gatorade. However, numerous, and I say numerous, research studies have been done, because this apparently is an argument that many people have had over a significant period of time as to the color of lemon lime Gatorade. And I learned 2 things. The first is that over the years, it has gotten more yellow than it was previously, especially when I was growing up and I drank it. It was greener at that time. That's number 1. But number 2 is that the color of Gatorade, lemon lime Gatorade, is chartreuse. Chartreuse is a green, yellow, green color that is in the green family of colors. So when you get as technical as you possibly can, lemon lime Gatorade is indeed green.
Yeah, but I don't know the color family dynamics, but aren't there only 3 main colors? Red, blue, and yellow?
Tons of different shades. There's the hex colors that you look on the internet.
You get green by mixing, like, what, red and blue or something
and yellow.
Like that? Yeah. So, blue and yellow.
But so red and blue, you get purple. What are you talking?
Yeah, right. I was mixed up. So, you mix yellow. Yeah, you get green from yellow, though.
So, yes, but when it's a color, so like green is the primary color that chartreuse falls under. And this is in that family. So you can Google it while we're talking right now.
Yeah, I did.
Gatorade chartreuse, or you can Google chartreuse color family. and you will see that the answer is
if you want to call it chartreuse Gatorade from now on, feel free.
No, I'm not going to. I'm not going to, Chris.
Everybody who's a normal person here, including the getting overheads, agree that this is yellow Gatorade.
I'm not going to call it chartreuse Gatorade, and I'm not going to call it yellow Gatorade, and I'm not going to call it green Gatorade, because where this conversation began is that my entire life I have referred to it as lemon lime Gatorade. So it doesn't even matter. Like that's where this came from at the very beginning. It doesn't matter. And I'm not trying to pull the rock. It doesn't matter what color you call it, but it really doesn't for me, because I've always called it lemon lime.
I'm trying to think of, are there any flavors that people describe by not the color? Like fruit punch, everybody says red Gatorade. There's blue.
This is the only one that I would hold that, lemon lime Gatorade is the only flavor.
That doesn't even fall consistent in your own naming, though. It's the only one you don't name by the color. Because
it's the original. It's the original Gatorade. It's lemon lime Gatorade. Everything else, red, blue, whatever, purple Gatorade. But that's also, here's another reason why I hold that. Gatorade has so many freaking flavors that if you want the blue Gatorade, you don't necessarily know what that flavor is called. Like Arctic Blue or Arctic Blast or whatever the hell color they have. So for the vast majority of Gatorades, if you're looking at a refrigerator and someone's like, which one do you want? You're like, I want the blue one. I want the red one. And maybe for you would say, I want the yellow one. I would say, give me lemon. People. I would say, give me lemon lime every single time. I think we can do a Twitter poll. I think orange and fruit punch are like the original ones that like people started calling by. They started calling them by color because it was lemon lime, it was orange, and it was fruit punch, and those were the three. So people would say lemon lime, red, or orange. At least, again, that's how I grew up. Maybe you're a little bit older than me, so maybe that was the case. That just that was never an experience I had, and apparently a lot of the listeners. That's fine.
I appreciate those who came to my defense, on the Twitter sphere to defend the name of yellow Gatorade. I'm going to stick with it.
The vast majority of people call it. I will agree. The vast majority of people refer to that color of Gatorade as yellow. I'm not denying that. What I'm telling you is it's not. That's the difference here.
Well, no, it's literally not. Yeah, it says lemon lime on the bottle.
It's lemon lime on the bottle. The color is chartreuse, and it's in the green family.
I'm saying that nobody really calls it that except.
That's fine, but they're wrong. Is all I'm saying.
That's right.
That's it.
All right, that's fine. I'm a man of the people, and the people say yellow. So.
You want to know what yellow is? The Creed Brothers gear at In Your House. That's yellow.
That was very yellow. I did catch up on that, by the way. I did catch up. That was an awesome match.
Yeah,
and the Creeds are awesome. And
I am looking forward.
See, and we may mention Pretty Deadly here later on the show.
We may, yeah. In fact, I think we're probably going to. Now, real quick also, before we get to the main event, just wanted to have a quick overview conversation about Raw on Monday night. So it was surprising to me, and I'm wondering if you feel the same way, that we did not get any build for the Money in the Bank matches on Raw. Like, even if they didn't actively do qualifying matches or announced individuals being in Money in the Bank, they could have discussed what the plans would be for the men and women. Cody Rhodes was the only person on the show that I can tell to even mention wanting to be in one of those matches on the show. I just found it odd that they didn't immediately start some small build, wrestlers going to Adam Pearce backstage, hey, we want to be in the match, really promoting the fact that you have these two huge matches. They had briefcases hanging over the ring, and I'm pretty sure that Cody is the only one who looked at them. Like, I'm almost positive about that. So I was surprised at that, and I was more surprised that it wasn't referenced extensively for the men, given most of the women on the show who would compete in that match had a match in the main event. So obviously they would prefer to contend for the title directly than be in the Money in the Bank. But I'm kind of wondering if you felt the same way.
Yeah, I think the only other time they might have mentioned it was when Montez Ford almost hit them on his frog splash.
Right.
They commented that he almost hit the briefcase. You're right. Yeah, there wasn't much talk about it at all. And yet, it did seem like a pretty eventful episode of Raw. We got a lot of things that happened. We got the starts of new feuds or planned rematches for next week, or the Cena thing. There was a lot that happened on this show. Not a lot of it directly toward Money in the Bank, which was surprising. There's a lot of times the day after the previous pay-per-view, they just announce the 6 of them, and then they all fight each other for the next 4 weeks going into the pay-per-view.
Right.
So I was surprised they didn't do it, but I also didn't feel like it was lacking just because it seemed like a lot of things happened, which was a pleasant surprise.
They could have even done, though, next week on Raw, like, because they promoted basically nothing for next week. Next week on Raw, qualifying begins for the Money in the Bank matches. Stay tuned to WWE social media for more information.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if they even have the plan yet. I mean, Cody's situation was maybe the most important part of that whole situation.
Maybe it's the plan's up in the air. Yeah,
they may have not yet decided who's going to win and therefore who's in it.
But even if that's the case, and like, let's say Cody was going to win, and now they need to change plans. There was still a ton of other people that need to be in that match. So you have to imagine there's some people who could have qualified or could have said, I want a chance to qualify. Again, I'm just talking about mentioning it. There's only 3 Raws now, but between this show, between Raw and Monday night and Money in the Bank. Like, it's a short build because they wanted to do Money in the Bank at the start of July and SummerSlam at the end of July. So it's a very, very short window to build for this show. And look, it's WWE, right? So they could do all of the qualifiers next week on Raw and SmackDown, and we'd have the entire thing built with two weeks to go. And maybe that's exactly what happens. But again, to not promote that, to not give people a reason to say, hey, tune in next week when the qualification begins, or have, people the likes of AJ Styles or Finn Balor or Kevin Owens or whoever backstage, hey, Pierce, we want to be in this match. Hey, guys, okay, let me figure it out. I'll tell you next week. To not do that at all, it just seemed like a huge miss. It's a 3-hour show. There was so much they could have cut to go and actually promote the pay-per-view. Premium live event.
Yeah, no, I agree. Usually they go show to show like that, especially for Money in the Bank. It's usually something they get into right away. So yeah, it is kind of surprising that they didn't.
Okay. And then one last thing before we get to the main event. I thought Raw was a very strange show overall. I saw a lot of people praising it up and down. And maybe it's just because there's certain things that they did that I personally don't like. I thought the opening was really solid and the final hour was pretty great. But the 90 minutes in between those things, it was just like monotonous, short matches, repetitiveness. I really struggled to enjoy the show for a large portion of it on Monday.
I'm one of those people who liked the show. And it wasn't just because, like I said a minute ago, but like, stuff happened. It felt fresh-ish. It wasn't the same people we've seen fight a million times. We got a little bit of it, but it wasn't the same thing running back over and over again. We advanced onto new stories. We set some new things up. We got a big turn. So it felt like a nice show where stuff mattered, and you don't always get that. So I appreciated that.
Alrighty. So with that, let's truly begin the show by sliding into the main event. And let's start with the topic that dominated our Hell in a Cell instant analysis, and that was Cody Rhodes. Cody opened Raw using only one arm, gingerly walking to the ring. He got massive Cody and thank you Cody chants. He said he appreciated all the praise, but it's him who gets the privilege of being able to go out and wrestle. He got choked up and said he wants his daughter to watch the match that he just had one day when she's of age to understand kind of what it takes to fight through adversity and pain and all that type of stuff. Cody called Seth Rollins one of the best ever, but said that book is closed. Then he said that the Money in the Bank briefcase, the contract, the whole thing has eluded him for his entire career, and he referenced going after it. Rollins' music hit. He stoically limped his way to the ring. He said he still doesn't like Cody, but he definitely earned his respect as the toughest and gutsiest guy he's ever fought. Rollins then said Dusty is very proud of his baby boy, which choked Cody up and led to Dusty chants from the crowd. They shook hands. Rollins whispered something in his ear, and then he walked off. Cody's promo here was perfect. Rollins coming out to seemingly, legitimately pay respect was great, but kind of like that CM Punk promo on Rampage, the comments about Money in the Bank, for me, when Cody said them, they cast a really strange shadow over the segment, given he has surgery upcoming this Wednesday, and you cannot rehab in 4 weeks, period. I don't care who you are. You can't rehab in 4 weeks and wrestle. Just not going to happen. So I was ready to criticize the concept of Cody even suggesting that he would be in Money in the Bank until Rollins attacked him from behind with the sledgehammer. A half dozen officials just stood there as Rollins attacked. That was the only negative part. But Rollins stomped on the torn pectoral. He jammed the sledgehammer into it, both ends of it. And then after commercial break, Cody refused to board a stretcher and he walked off to cheers. So this was one of those segments, Chris, that I thought was executed like 85% of the way to perfection. The elements were all appropriate. It could have been done with like a little bit more intensity, maybe. I said in the instant analysis on Sunday night that Rollins should have beaten Cody because then Cody could come back and dispatch Rollins in his first match post-surgery before moving on. Instead, they had Cody win, and they're likely going to do that booking anyway, which means Cody's eventually going to not just be 3-0, but 4-0 against Seth. So it was the right move to open the show. Cody and Rollins both did really well here, but I was a little bit surprised that they went to this extent and kind of played this out the way they did.
Yeah, when Seth comes out and does the handshake and everything and is really nice, I'm thinking, okay, they could turn Seth here if Cody's going to be out for a while.
Exactly.
Like Seth Roman is something you can do. He's a guy who's flipped between sides before. They did Seth Roman at the Rumble. Like you can do this. This is a good way to turn him. And then but then I'm thinking, you're right. Is Cody in the match? How is he going to be the match if he's having surgery? And then the beatdown happens. Honestly, that really surprised me. I did not see that coming. So they popped me for that.
I agree.
It was very well done. And that was good and everything. So I assume what we're going to hear is that Cody now can't be in the match because of what Seth did to him, and that's a way to write him out.
As if that attack somehow was worse than him wrestling a 25-minute match in the cell. That's what confused me. It's like this guy got that pec torn to shreds, quote unquote, even further in the cell, but then this Rollins doing basically the same stuff that he already did, made it worse, and now he's not going to be in Money in the Bank. It's very strange.
You could have had him say, like, fighting through that match in kayfabe made it worse, and he needs surgery, and he won't be around or something like that. The other thing is, I can't believe we didn't think of this. We don't do headlines, but we didn't think of this pun, but we didn't use the phrase impeccable about that Hell in a Cell match. We should have. It was impeccable. That was a miss on our part. Apologies. But I kept thinking about that yesterday. So
it was also, you know what it also was? It was spectacular as well.
Yes, that's a good one too. So yeah, it seems like Cody's out, and then he's going to come back and have to beat Seth. But is that going to be 4-0? Is he going to lose to Seth first and then win? I don't know. We don't know anything with Cody. He does it. He's I think it was Daniel Bryan who made the comment that Cody Rhodes taught him how to lie in wrestling a little bit, and so Cody's always kind of working you and working and shooting a little bit. It's always hard to know, and I think that's intriguing as a viewer. So we'll see. But that was an overall very good segment. Leave some questions. I assume they'll answer soon. Leave some questions we won't get answered soon. So we'll see. The only other thing is this is not relevant specific to this promo, but it just hit me when Cody says he wants to be the WWE Undisputed Universal Champion. That is such a terrible name for this title. It's way too many words. It's a mouthful to come out. I just thought about it because a few people mentioned it on the show. Don't like the name. Well,
what's interesting is everyone screws it up because it is the Undisputed WWE Universal Championship.
Yeah, and I even messed it up.
And right, but no, you said what he said. You said exactly what Cody said. So that actually, like, it's not the worst because you would have an undisputed world heavyweight champion, undisputed WWE Universal Champion. I actually am not bothered by it for two reasons. One, it is what it is. It's the WWE Championship and the Universal Championship, and they have not combined it. They have not made one championship title. They have not combined the reigns. Roman Reigns is still carrying two belts on his shoulders. So for all of those reasons, it keeps the hope alive in my head for both his championships and the Usos' Undisputed Tag Team Championships that they're going to split those titles again. Otherwise, if they did merge it into one and change the name and just called it the WWE Universal Championship or whatever the hell, then I would kind of look at it and say, well, shit, here we go again. They're going to have to start a new lineage for something else, and they're going to have to end one of the lineages, of course, hoping it would be the Universal one that they would end. So it's a lose-lose for me if they combine them, but keeping them separate, having the slightly convoluted, longer name, I actually don't really have a problem with it.
Yeah, like I get the name, but I wish they never shorthand these things, but I wish they would shorthand it into just undisputed champion. Just,
Absolutely.
if you're talking about it, I want to be the undisputed WWE champion. And then if you split them, you can still count it as the lineage. It's undisputed when they're together. It's just, split them apart. I don't know, just a small thing, but
no, it's fine.
That.
Before we move off of Cody, if you guys will indulge me and allow me to book the damn territory for a moment, okay? Here's what I would do at this juncture if I was WWE. I would have Rollins win Money in the Bank and cash in on Reigns to win the titles, either after SummerSlam or after Clash at the Castle. That would then open Reigns up for The Rock in a non-title match at WrestleMania Hollywood. Then you have Cody Rhodes return. He obviously wins the Royal Rumble, and we get Rollins Rhodes 4 at WrestleMania for the WWE Championship. Boom. You have 2 main events. You are easily selling out night 1. You're easily selling out night 2 with The Rock. Done and done. Everyone's happy. Your top 3 guys in the company right now are all in the main event. Reigns doesn't have the title. He has an excuse for losing the championships. And then as soon as he's done with The Rock, he can go back after the titles and maybe eventually even beat Cody Rhodes.
Yeah, when you said that, my first thought is Cody versus Seth a WrestleMania main event match? But then I realized it's 2 nights, and The Rock Roman can still be the main event. So I think
and
that
it's
works.
The WWE Championship, and it's a great feud. It really has been a great feud.
It is a very good feud, and a good story, and the match will be great. We know these guys are great, but I still I want to see Cody versus Roman. Seth being the guy to take down Roman after all this time is just like, did Seth need it? What about if Drew McIntyre wins it at Clash at the Castle and then Seth cashes in a month later or something like that? And then you can still set up the same thing.
You put over,
how would you feel?
You put over McIntyre.
You have McIntyre be the one to take it off of Reigns at Clash at the Castle. And
you
then
could have
Seth
McIntyre. You could have McIntyre do that, hold it to the Rumble, Cody win the Rumble, Rollins cash in on McIntyre after he defends the title at the Rumble. And now, boom, you have a brand new WrestleMania main event.
Yeah. I just think, with all the Roman buildup, who's going to be the guy to take it off him? Cody would have been a great person to do that. It may not happen now. Drew's got that. Drew's calling his shot months in advance for Clash at the Castle. It feels like they're trying to build that into being a moment.
I just cannot, dude, with Reigns having this title reign as long as he's had it, for McIntyre to take the titles off of him in England, or in the United Kingdom.
Wales.
Yeah, I corrected. In the United Kingdom, at what time? 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern? 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern in the United States? 4 o'clock on the West Coast? I don't see them doing that for some reason. Like, maybe they will. Maybe they're going to. But with Reigns being built up the way he's been built up, I do agree with you that ideally he would not lose the championships with a Money in the Bank cash-in. That feels cheap. You really want to put someone over in the moment. I totally understand that. But we thought it was going to be Big E. It's not. We thought it would be McIntyre. Maybe it still will be. I still am kind of wishy-washy on them actually doing that at Clash at the Castle. God forbid they do it at Blood Money in the Sand. I think I'd lose my mind if they did it at Blood Money in the Sand.
Yeah.
But I mean, they do book those as real shows now, right? Not the bullshit. So you have to look at where is Reigns going to lose the title, or is he actually going to hold this title all the way till Mania? And we're assuming the Rock thing happens. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it is as simple as Reigns holding the championship, Cody winning the Royal Rumble, and we get Reigns and Cody at WrestleMania, and that's it. No Rock.
I'd love that.
That would be good. That would be very good. That'd be fine. But I think this option is better, in my opinion. The other thing that they could do, if they want to factor Seth back into it, if they are going to go Reigns Cody at WrestleMania, is you do the very standard, Seth is the number 1 entrant in the Royal Rumble. Cody comes out at somewhere between 28 and 30. Everyone else is eliminated. It's just them. You have a 15-minute match. Cody wins, eliminates Rollins. Rollins is pissed. They fight again in Elimination Chamber. Cody gets his 4th win, and then he goes on to WrestleMania. So that is the secondary option. But I do think one of those two things will happen.
Yeah.
I hope.
Very possible. Very possible.
All right. Second part of this 3-part main event, WWE announced on Raw that John Cena will be returning for the June 27th edition of the show in Laredo, Texas. And that was the extent of the promotion. He's celebrating 20 years after his debut this entire month. And it sounds like this is kind of a one-off, maybe setting up a storyline for like SummerSlam, potentially. I think it would be really cool if he was coming in for a short run as like a star power substitute with Cody not being there. It is strange, though, to return Cena in Laredo, Texas, of all places. No offense to you living in Texas, and no offense to anyone who lives in Laredo, but I do believe he's shooting something in New Mexico, which is probably why that location makes sense. But if you're bringing Cena back, like New Orleans, like Cincinnati, like a major city, you would think is where he would come from. But I just felt it was like a lackluster announcement with a simple graphic. It didn't even pop me. And the announcement of John Cena returning should pop me.
Look, and if you're going to have John Cena return, you want it to be a surprise. I was at the Money in the Bank last year.
That's the other thing.
He showed up after the Edge Roman match, and that place went absolutely bananas for him. That's how you want to do it. I do understand the television side of, hey, you want to promote it to, pop a rating and get some big stuff and do all that, and that's fine. I think the timing is is also weird. This is the week. This is the go home Raw for Money in the Bank. It's not the week after Money in the Bank setting up SummerSlam. Right. So my first thought when I saw Cena was, we're gonna do John Cena versus Austin Theory. Mm-hmm. Cena
and
dropped
we still
Theory's name.
We may get that.
Yeah. Cena dropped Theory's name a few times on a social media video. Theory, I think, replayed it on his social media. So Cena is really high on him. It seems like a possibility of that potentially being the one-off. But it is, a little weird for it to be the go-home show, not maybe the one afterward. Maybe it's the timing. I was unaware of that New Mexico thing you just mentioned. So could be it as well. But generally it was a letdown because like John Cena was the greatest ever. Hey, he's going to be at this Raw. And they really did emphasize the Laredo, Texas part of it. Like they really to sell tickets or something like that. Hey, people in Laredo, we need you there. So it was overall weird. And, anytime you get a return and they don't do it a surprise, I'm going to criticize it. I criticize AEW for when they mess up surprise returns, and this is even worse. I mean, this is straight up announcing it. So, this is, look, I'm excited to see Cena, but the announcement itself was disappointing.
I agree. I think he is filming the Wile E. Coyote movie is what he's doing over there. Which, by the way, sounds pretty awesome. I didn't even know I think it's like a live action type of thing. But yeah, I'm not exactly sure the circumstances of it. Again, Laredo, Texas, no offense. It's just a strange spot. And I fully agree with the second point that you made, which was, man, if they just had him show up as a surprise, like the roof. I mean, the roof will still blow off. It's still going to be a huge reaction. But that surprise factor, the people tuning in to Raw, oh my God, trending on social media. Oh my God, John Cena, everyone tuned to Raw now. What's going to happen? Mm-hmm. Now, because it's announced and because it's kind of only been announced as one location, not like a Summer of Cena, which is what they did last year. I look at it and I'm like, oh, so just one day.
Yeah.
That's how it comes off to me, at least. Okay. The third part of this main event, it's kind of convoluted because there's a lot to talk about with Roman Reigns, the Usos, Riddle, Shinsuke Nakamura, Randy Orton. It's this overall huge storyline that is difficult to address without going down each part individually. So let's start with what we got on SmackDown, Chris. The undisputed tag team championships on the line. The Usos defending against Riddle and Shinsuke Nakamura. This is after they earned a number one contendership opportunity the prior Raw via disqualification. We will mention that again later in the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'll get to that. Riddle backstage said he and Nakamura are still in the honeymoon phase, but Nakamura agreed they're working well together. Riddle then dedicated the match to Randy Orton. The Usos later made imitation of Riddle, like his voice and his mannerisms, and then dedicated the match themselves to Roman Reigns. So the match started, I believe it was the main event. Nakamura did his sliding powerbomb early. Then Riddle got dumped off the top rope onto his face. Shinsuke threw Jay into the steel steps, then Jay dodged as Shinsuke hit Kinshasa into the steps. The Usos took out his knee with a kick at ringside. The referee then threw up the X, and trainers took him backstage, making it a handicap match. The Usos dominated, but Riddle hit a final flash and went on a big underdog run with a springboard floating bro into the brothers outside. Riddle hit the power slam and draping DDT on Jimmy, but when Jay got involved, he ate a pop-up Samoan drop. Riddle caught Jimmy on the top rope when Roman Reigns' music hit. He still hit Jimmy with an avalanche RKO, but Jay tagged in blind and caught him with the Uso splash for the title retention in 14 minutes. And it was immediately revealed that Sami Zayn hit the entrance music button in the production truck. He came out to celebrate, but Riddle lost his mind and attacked all three guys until referees separated them, with Riddle screaming this wasn't the end. First of all, this was a great match in a handicap situation. Riddle, we know he is over like Rover. The injury angle with Nakamura, I thought was extremely smart. It got really good heat on the Usos, and it made Riddle look even more sympathetic. And then it made him look even stronger because he almost beat them 1-on-2. When this was first announced, I thought it was absurd for it not to be at Hell in a Cell. But with the injury angle and the booking, I think they 100% made the right decision to put it on SmackDown. The other thing I will say, I'll let you get in, I expected a Sami interference because heaven forbid Roman Reigns shows up at SmackDown. But I didn't expect it in the production truck. Sami was hysterical once again, being shocked and surprised and happy that it actually worked. I loved it. And it was so cool to see a person actually making the music distraction happen instead of it just randomly happening and being totally unexplained. On a SmackDown that, spoiler alert, pissed me off more and more with every segment that passed, this entire thing, the booking top to bottom, the wrestling, the storytelling, I thought it ruled hard in a major way.
If you're going to do a distraction finish like that, after you did one a couple weeks ago, make it in a handicap situation and show exactly how and why and put a twist on what that distraction was. It was a unique way to do it, and I enjoyed it. And Sami Zayn's just unrelenting desire to get in with the Usos in the bloodline has been a great story, following up on what Kevin Owens told him on Raw. He really wants to be their friend, and he's doing these things to try to make it happen. And so it worked. The match was great. Riddle looked good in that whole situation. I still think you could have put this on Hell in a Cell. Now, Hell in a Cell did end up being 3 hours. You know, we regraded it AA-. You know, you added the Madcap Moss match in there, so it ended up doing it. With the way the finish happened, I think you could have put this on the show and maybe not made it the main event, and it still would have been fine. But SmackDown just in general holds its biggest matches for TV. Just it's complete opposite of what Raw does. So it's just kind of a different approach. This was a good way to do it, and furthers Riddle's ascension kind of as a singles wrestler now.
Yeah, I mean, it got him over in a significant manner as a singles wrestler, even though he's already over. People already know he's capable and good. I think he held the United States Championship. Is that?
I think he did. Yeah, him and Sheamus fought at WrestleMania 37 over it.
Okay, so he's held its championship before. He's clearly capable, but this just accomplished. It hit every single like metric that you would want it. It got Riddle over. It got him sympathetic. It got heel heat on the Usos. It was entertaining, you know, for TV. They had a distraction, so they gave him an excuse, but they explained it. Like every area where I could look at it and say that was stupid, they figured out a way to make it not, right? Like they filled in all the blanks. And that is, you know, I'm not saying necessarily that Paul Heyman had his hands in that. But when you look at SmackDown and see how most things are booked, and you realize that this storyline is the one thing that's booked well, I like to give credit to Paul, even if maybe he doesn't deserve it. I'm sure he appreciates that nonetheless. All right, so Chris, let's move to what happened on Raw. And we do have a lot to talk about with all of these people from Raw. We'll start off with Miz was in the ring in a tux with Maurice in a black dress.
It looked good, but she's got me saying, hey now!
for a special edition of Miz TV promoting the premiere of their show, Miz and Mrs. Riddle interrupted as the guest and spoke French to Maurice. Miz said Riddle would get his ass whooped each week now that Randy Orton was gone. Riddle said he's sick of the Usos and ready to take on the tribal piece of trash one-on-one because he wants the undisputed WWE Universal Championship. He said Miz is a homemaker to Cena's peacemaker and that Maurice drags him around by his tiny balls. That got a tiny balls chant from the crowd. Maurice said Miz had average balls, actually above average balls, actually gigantic, massive balls, the biggest in the world. Riddle demanded he prove it. The crowd was dying from this. And Maurice then challenged for a match that Miz obviously didn't want. Miz said no. And then Ciampa attacked Riddle from behind to Miz's surprise. They still haven't explained this, by the way, with Ciampa, but we don't even need to talk about it, but they're not explaining it. I don't get what they're doing. Then Miz decided he wanted the match because Riddle was injured. So we got Riddle versus Miz. Riddle hit a draping DDT. Miz avoided the RKO. Riddle chased him, ripped off his tux pants by the back pockets, leaving Miz in boxer briefs and immediately generating legitimate tiny balls chants naturally from the crowd. Riddle avoided the loaded purse from Miz and hit an RKO to win in a couple of minutes. This Miz TV segment ruled. And the Green Bay crowd deserves a lot of credit for reacting to everything they did. Miz was great. Maurice was great. Riddle was great. The crowd was fantastic during the Riddle-Miz match, just adding life to something that clearly was going to be a relative squash. It was the perfect way to feature Riddle solo. It showcased his attraction to the fans, the comedy elements of his character, and his in-ring ability. The only problem with it was, let's just say, it was pretty tough to concentrate on Riddle and Miz at the opening of that segment. We'll talk about the booking going forward in a minute, but I'm wondering if you enjoyed what we got Monday as much as I did.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. It provided the dual purpose of furthering Riddle kind of as a single side and him kind of turning serious in the middle of that promo was really good to see, because that's always the thing you wonder about Riddle is, can he just be goofy or can he be serious? And Miz tried to lean into the goofiness, but then Riddle brought it back to be serious. That was a really good way to handle that. It also promoted Miz versus Mrs., so that worked as well. And the tiny balls thing was like, it was dumb at first, and it was probably even dumb on paper, but the way Maurice said it and the way she acted it out was hilarious. That saved the whole thing. By she was like, big balls, gigantic balls, biggest in the world. And it's like, this is a family show, but no woman cares about the size of balls. That's not the size thing when people talk about size. So it was just nonsensical. But it was funny because the way Maurice just kind of said
she was doing it for Miz. It's her husband.
No, right. But I mean the way she like it wasn't just saying, oh, actually no, he has big balls. It was no, big balls, biggest balls in the world. Like just the way she said it was really funny. And you mentioned the Green Bay crowd, pretty good crowd. And I got to say it was good to see that, because I always associate the Green Bay crowd with the return of Evolution in 2014, when they got almost no reaction from a crowd in Green Bay. And I've always been, you always mention Lafayette, Louisiana
can go to hell.
When you come up with a random town.
I love Baton Rouge. I love New Orleans. Lafayette, you can go to hell.
You always say Lafayette. To me, it's always been the Green Bay crowd and that lack of reaction to the Evolution return that always sticks with me. But the Green Bay crowd was great here. So shout out to Green Bay for that. This was something that, again, on paper, probably wouldn't care all that much about it, but the execution by everybody involved was superb and made it really funny and a really good segment.
Yeah, it was awesome. Now, between SmackDown and Raw, Chris, I think the booking should probably be setting up Riddle and Roman Reigns at Money in the Bank. Riddle is the only one left right now. Both of his partners are gone. He's been calling Reigns a tribal piece of trash for at least 2 weeks, maybe 3, but I think 2. Orton's return and title match, they can totally hold that off for SummerSlam. It just makes a ton of sense. The other option is putting Riddle in position to win Money in the Bank, which would also be a lot of fun and would completely fit in the storyline. But I'm just of the opinion at this point that Reigns badly needs to wrestle and defend the championship at Money in the Bank. I mean, he needed to do it even when Cody was going to be on that show. But the fact that Cody is now off Money in the Bank means it's even more important that Reigns is on that show. If he does defend the title there, it will be 3 full months between winning the championship from Brock Lesnar, the second half of it, and his first title defense. This guy has not defended the title since he won it, or since WrestleMania. That is absurd. Waiting until SummerSlam would be nearly 120 days, 1/3 of the entire year, and would be even more ridiculous if they wait all the way till that, especially with Cody out, like I said. They got to have Reigns at Money in the Bank. A Riddle match, I think, would be a massive main event in terms of like fan excitement. It would also be very high quality from an in-ring standpoint. I really, truly hope that they're not moving away from that and keeping Reigns off the show. Reigns needs to be there this Friday, and this match needs to get booked for Money in the Bank.
Regarding Randy Orton, I've heard some things that he may be legit partially injured. Do we know, has there been anything on the dirt sheets about his status, or is he just straight up taking some time?
I haven't seen anything about that. I think it's completely kayfabe, but maybe not. Maybe like he tweaked something and so it's kind of real, but they're exaggerating it. But I've seen nothing about that. Know. Yeah, I've seen nothing about it.
I just wanted to double check because I wasn't really sure, and I try not to seek out these things. So yeah, Orton Reigns would indeed be the bigger match for SummerSlam. Probably the biggest, since they're already doing McIntyre at Clash of the Castle. Orton Reigns is the biggest match they can do right now. Unless you bring Brock back, which it's always possible. It's always possible.
How about this? I'm gonna tell you this right now. Orton Reigns is bigger than Reigns Brock. It just is. People want it more.
I care. I don't know if the mystical casuals care, because we clearly know how they feel about Brock Roman based on everything that happened last year. So we'll see. But I do agree that based on what we have, Randy Roman is the biggest one you can do. Save that for SummerSlam. Put Riddle on for Money in the Bank.
Yep.
You need a main event type of deal there. The Undisputed Tag Team Championships are not that anymore. So yeah, I think that's what you got to do, and they've been setting it up. It would be disappointing if they're setting it up now, only for it to happen, almost 2 months from now.
I totally agree. And they could also do an angle where Reigns is like, "You want a shot? Go win the briefcase," and he wins the briefcase, and then they do Riddle and Reigns at SummerSlam if Orton legitimately is injured. That's totally a possibility. And
you mean Riddle? You mean Riddle wins Money in the Bank and just says, "Hey, let's do this at SummerSlam"?
Well, yeah, Reigns is like, "Hey, if you want to fight me for the championship, go win Money in the Bank. You don't deserve a title shot." Riddle, he's and Riddle's like, "Okay, fine, I'll win Money in the Bank." He wins it, and then he's rather than do a surprise, he goes, "Hey, main event SummerSlam," or they do the exact same thing that you get Reigns versus Orton at SummerSlam, and Reigns wins, and then Riddle cashes in the contract and beats him and wins the championship. That would be fantastic. Orton softens him up, Riddle cashes in.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ways you can do it. Like that,
and it's interesting.
We're putting out a lot of ideas. I'm not saying that these are necessarily the best ideas, but between the ideas for this, the stuff with Rollins and Cody, like WWE has actually, for a guy who really doesn't seem to have any challengers, there's a really solid handful of people that would significantly pop fans if they won the championship or were in title matches or whatever. They do have enough challengers and enough interesting storylines to go all the way through WrestleMania.
Yeah, there's a lot that there's a lot of ways it could go, and that makes it exciting. It's exciting. We don't know how it could turn out. So that's the thing we're looking forward to going into Money in the Bank.
As long as Roman Reigns returns to television.
Yeah, well, television, yes, but at least Money in the Bank.
But I mean, the guy's got to be on TV at this point. Like what was it, 2 weeks that he wasn't on either show? Look, he hasn't been on Raw since that one appearance ahead of WrestleMania Backlash. So the guy hasn't been on Raw in like 5 weeks. He hasn't been on SmackDown in 2 weeks. I mean, he's the champion.
Yeah,
it's absurd.
Look, we've talked that a million times. It's well known on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast that we would like our world champion to be in a position to actually defend the title and be on television. But we're built differently.
I mean, look, we're not gonna spend an hour on it like we did the other time. But if he isn't at Money in the Bank, yeah, I'll probably rant on it again. I promise you that. All right, one more thing before we get to the good, the bad, and the ugly. We got to wrap up the tag team picture. So we had the Usos against the Street Profits in a championship contenders match on Raw. Montez Ford got 2.99 counts right after the bell, which was really weird. The Usos looked extremely rattled. I thought it was strange booking. The match started really slow, and the crowd kept getting like more and more quiet as it started. Ford jumped off the steel steps for a cannonball on Jay before commercial. Then the Usos threw one of the Profits into the steps before another commercial. The Profits hit Anointment and the Frog Splash, with Jimmy breaking the fall at the last split second. Jay threw Ford into the barricade, but Ford tipped him into the timekeeper's area and then beat a 10 count that was barely audible on the screen. I didn't even realize the referee was counting for the count-out victory. Riddle ran in to celebrate immediately with the Profits after the bell. Something about this just did not work for me. Maybe it was the slow start. Maybe it was the 2 commercial breaks. Maybe it was the fact that it remains incredibly stupid, especially in an undisputed title situation, to have championship contender matches when your champions are going to have to lose those matches to create a number one contender. We had a DQ previously for Riddle and Nakamura. That was messy with, Jimmy or Jay, whoever, using a scooter. It was just stupid. This one was a count out. It was just as stupid. It is so incredibly frustrating to have an entire tag team division across 2 shows, and now the titles are undisputed. So theoretically, you can have Raw and SmackDown people contending with each other for that number 1 spot to actually challenge for the titles. So you have your entire tag team roster. You brought Alpha Academy back to TV. You could have had Alpha Academy against Dirty Dogs and Street Profits in a triple threat, with the winner getting a title match. There's a million different things that they could have done. Instead, they gave us a championship contenders match for really no good reason and had the undisputed champions lose, even though it was via countout. They did it just so we can get a match that we already saw for like 15 minutes a second time. It's exactly what they did with Riddle and Nakamura. It was frustrating then. It's frustrating now. It's the only part of this entire main event section with Riddle, the Usos, Roman Reigns, all these people. It's the only part that I legitimately did not like.
And it's not because of the people involved. It's because of everything around it. You knew that, first of all, because it's an Usos match, you were starting to wait for interference, because we've gotten that the last couple of matches with them. It's becoming a thing now where is Sami Zayn going to come out? Is music going to hit? You're kind of just waiting to get to that point now because of what we've been conditioned for the last couple of weeks. The other part is, you knew the Street Profits weren't going to straight up pin them because they're the undisputed tag team champs. And I don't even remember the last time the Usos just straight up clean lost a match. So you knew that wasn't going to happen. So you kind of just felt like you were going through the motions a bit to wait to get to the end. And then the end hits and you didn't even realize it's the end, because I didn't realize there was a 10 count going on. I can't remember the last time I saw a count out in a tag team match. That was a new one for me. So yeah, the ending was flat because nobody was really paying attention because we're all thinking something else was going to happen, and the 10 count wasn't clear. So yeah, that was definitely a real letdown considering the immense talent of the folks involved. Look, we got the Street Profits Usos for a tag team title match. That's going to be really fun. But the Usos are in a spot where we're kind of just waiting for shenanigans, and that's not a good spot to be.
So I was scrolling and trying to find like an answer to your question. The last time the Usos lost a tag team match clean, 2-on-2 tag team match clean, was January 21st against Kevin Owens and Seth Rollins on SmackDown.
Okay.
Everything else they've lost has either been like a 6-man or it's been via disqualification or count out or some other bullshit.
Yeah.
So there's your answer. I'm surprised I was able to find that so quickly. But yeah, so anyway, okay. That is the main event, and now it is time for us to move into the second segment of this show. That's going to lead, by the way, with a topic that easily could have been in the main event most weeks. But let's first start by sliding into the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Showing you the good, the bad, the ugly when your money gets Sonny, we showing you the good, the bad, the ugly, and this is for the hood. You got to love me.
So we will kick off this segment with Raw's 10 p.m. countdown this week, which was for Judgment Day, as the group promised to welcome in a new member. Their entrance, I thought, was perfected, with Edge kind of leading out right in the front, coming out of the shadows. They even got an unnecessary augmented reality graphic. So now Judgment Day, we know, is for real. And it did look...
I think they had that at Hell in a Cell.
Oh, I missed that.
I think they did use it. Also, I actually thought the camera work on the entrance missed a little bit. It was too high up. You got to lower that camera so you can see the wings on Edge like they had been doing previously.
Yes, I agree with that. But him coming out of like the shadows where you're like, wait, how do we not see him already? And then just popping out into the light. So cool the way they do that production wise. It was really awesome.
Yep.
They did a bunch of nothing in the ring, or they said a bunch of nothing in the ring, with Damian Priest putting Ripley over as the next Raw Women's Champion. Edge had a great line about being the adult in the room and an expert on the mic, basically talking about avoiding the what chance that the crowd was doing. Then he praised Ripley and Priest for their success, noting that they listened to his message and said others were listening as well. Edge then introduced the newest member, and Finn Balor's music hit. Balor shook Edge's hand to really loud boos. I could not tell if they were real or piped in, but I think they were real. Edge said Balor reached out to them. He reached out to Ripley and Priest, and he was ecstatic to hear that Balor had changed his mind because he's one of the best ever to do it. Balor said he had a moment of clarity inside Hell in a Cell and wasn't going to fight against what he obviously needed to do, which was basically take control of his career, is what he was trying to say. Balor said he wasn't mad about losing the match. He was actually impressed at how they all fought for each other and have improved alongside each other. Priest said Edge has done such a good job helping them all realize what they needed to do in order to shed their limitations and become the best versions of themselves, that they only had one thing left to shed, and it was Edge. Priest attacked him, hit a huge south of heaven. Balor drilled him with the coup de grace. Edge tried to fight back, but got pummeled and pushed outside, where Priest put him through the announce table with a razor's edge. Ripley removed the bar from a steel chair, and Balor tortured him with it in a crossface. Ripley then held off WWE officials with a chair as Priest took Edge out with a concerto to end the segment. Chris, this is my shit right here, okay? This is why I love professional wrestling. Mm-hmm. Balor coming out was a little bit of a swerve. A lot of people expected it was a possibility, but in the moment, it was a little surprising. Then we thought, well, maybe Balor's like full of shit. Maybe he's trying to infiltrate them in another swerve, and Styles and Morgan are going to come out. They're all going to brawl again.
Because why would you reveal the new member just like this? By just saying, here he is, and there he is. Why would there's no... Surely Balor's going to turn on them. This is all a setup. It's too obvious, right?
Exactly. Way, way, way too obvious. And then they go ahead and actually swerve us by taking the leader out of Judgment Day in a double turn. The storyline was nails because they mentioned 3 different times how Balor conversed with Priest and Ripley as a trio, with Edge being surprised to learn that Balor wanted to join the group. This was just excellent. And putting Balor in a spot where he's the de facto leader of a heel group is something we've all wanted his entire career. This is the first time, Chris, that he's a heel on the main roster since he got signed by WWE. And it might even set up Edge versus Balor at SummerSlam, which, by the way, is a dream match. I can't praise this enough. I do wish the crowd was louder. Like I said, I'm not sure if WWE sweetened the reaction or not, but this hit on every single note. It was obviously good, and I honestly thought it was brilliant stuff.
Guys, that was rad. I am totally doing. I'll put the smoke, right? Fist me, boys.
Absolutely. First off, going back to the start of the promo, Edge and Damian Priest talking, they did a great job of stopping the what chance. Anytime, I still can't believe crowds do this stuff. Look, I just praised the Green Bay crowd, and now we're kind of back to shitting on them. But they're doing the what chance. Rhea couldn't quite get out of it, but Edge and Damian Priest knew how to change up their cadences to kind of stop it. And Edge acknowledged it directly. That kind of stopped it too. And so Finn comes out, I'm like, all right, so he's going to turn on them or what? He starts talking like a heel, and I'm thinking, he's talking like a normal person. I can't, and I'm like, oh my God, where has this Finn been along? I mean, we have the drop, stop being marks for yourselves, go back to being a mark for me. If I remember correctly, that's heel Finn in NXT, right?
Absolutely.
And I'm like, this is the Finn I've been waiting for forever. This is Finn, this is Bullet Club. Finn Balor created the freaking Bullet Club, and yet they've never made him a heel on the main roster before.
Let alone a faction leader or group leader.
Yeah, and my wife had actually just gotten home from a weekend trip, and she heard Finn Balor talking, and she was like, who is that? And I explained it was Finn Balor, and she knows who he is. She's like, oh, that's interesting, because she hadn't heard him like that before either. And so I'm like, okay, this is actually kind of interesting. I actually do want Finn to be in this group now and not turn on them. I'll be disappointed if he turns on them. Then he starts talking about Rhea and Priest, and I'm thinking, they're really planting some seeds here to turn on Edge at some point, possibly. That could be really interesting. And then boom, they do it right there, right in front of us. And I was like, oh my God, we're doing this. It was a great beatdown. They look good together. Look, are there other ways you could have done it? Could you have had Finn turn on AJ at some point and then explain himself the next week and then do that? Yeah, you could have done it. But this was such a different way to do it. It felt fresh. To do it all in one fell swoop, to just get into this new group. I'm excited about this group. I kind of like just having it now instead of having to wait for it. You know, Edge started the group. You know, he done a pretty good job of it. But also, like, the whole point of this was to elevate these other people who maybe needed some of it. Correct. And boom, they did it. Like, it's done. Like, there's no need to drag it out anymore and make any more of it about Edge leading these people. Let them do it on their own now. And you've got Finn Balor, again, the guy who led the freaking Bullet Club, to do that. So this was awesome stuff. This is the kind of thing, like you said, that you absolutely love out of pro wrestling, the things you don't see coming, the things you're excited to see in the future. Unbelievably well done.
And as much as we thought Judgment Day was improving, I think it's pretty fair to say that it wasn't hitting the way it could have. Like, you know, I thought when it first came together and those two were announced, I was like, man, this is top tier talent in a group. Mm-hmm. Like, this could be something huge for WWE. And not that Balor replacing Edge is a huge upgrade in terms of talent, because Edge is incredible and Balor is incredible. So it's pretty much an equal, change. Excuse me. But it felt like it needed refreshing. It felt like it wasn't maybe hitting every single note. And my hope is with Balor taking it over, maybe it gets refined a little bit, changed a little bit. Balor's a completely different voice than Edge's, and the whole thing just works for me. I have one correction. I said Edge Balor at SummerSlam. Well, there's a couple things I'm remembering. Number one, that's only 2 months away. Also, I'm forgetting that Clash at the Castle is the month after that. And Balor is obviously from, I forget if it's Ireland or Northern Ireland. I always get confused.
It's Ireland. Yeah.
There's so many people from Northern Ireland. I think it's Ireland.
Regular Ireland.
He's going to need to have Winslow, Ireland, right? That's what it is. Bray County, Winslow, Ireland.
Right. Yeah.
So he needs to have a big match at that show as well. So they'll either probably do match 1 at SummerSlam with match 2 at Clash in the Castle, or they can just save it for Clash at the Castle. But Balor Edge is awesome. What's funny though, the one funny thought in my head coming out of this is, what do I talk about on this podcast all the time? I love factions and stables. I want groups with 5, 6, 7 people in them. And we had 4 for 30 seconds, and they immediately made it 3 again. It's like, God forbid they give me a faction, a real faction. And we had it in the Hurt Business, and it was pretty good for a pretty decent period of time. They got rid of that. I thought Judgment Day would be the next one, and here we are again at 3 people. I do hope they expand. I hope they add 4, 5, 6, to their numbers in totality. It would be great, but I did laugh that, it was a faction for 60 seconds maybe.
And look, we had said, it never quite made sense for Edge to be this character. Like, he had been fans were cheering him. He had gotten title matches. Like, there were things he could be upset about, but him turning on the fans and insulting local sports teams, it just felt a little off. Finn Balor, Damian Priest, Rhea Ripley, they are people who in kayfabe can say, hey, we deserve more. We deserve this shot. we're going to take over this company, those types of things. So now you can move forward with that. I like that. I think it was Edge said Rhea's going to go win the Raw Women's Championship. That they're stating their goals. They want to, start to take over things. So, big fan of just kind of how that whole thing set up. Not only how it happened, but also how they set up what happened later in the show and what they want to do moving forward.
For sure. Okay, let's move on to what else happened with Rhea Ripley. We had a fatal 4-way women's match for the number 1 contendership to the Raw Women's Championship. Alexa Bliss, Liv Morgan, Rhea Ripley, and Doudrop. This was the main event of Raw. Bianca Belair sat ringside. Ripley dominated early until Morgan dropkicked her as Bliss hit a DDT. Morgan then did a running dropkick off the apron into Bliss, who was in Ripley's arms. Doudrop then caught her with a running senton outside. That looked pretty devastating. There was a great sequence with Morgan hitting a Hurricanrana on Ripley, Bliss taking Ripley out with a code red, and Doudrop splashing Bliss for a near fall. Doudrop hit a sit-down powerbomb on Liv for a broken fall. She climbed the ropes with Ripley stopping her before Bliss and Liv combined for a super duperplex. Bliss and Liv then did like the rolling inside cradle, counters a dozen times rolling around the ring before Bliss hit a DDT, but she took her sweet time getting to the top rope. Morgan got her knees up for Twisted Bliss. Doudrop threw Bliss out of the ring. Liv then hit a springboard codebreaker, but Nikki Ash grabbed her legs to prevent Oblivion from being hit. Bliss and Nikki took each other down at ringside. Doudrop then caught Liv flying for a Michinoku driver, with Ripley breaking the fall. Ripley finally hit Riptide on Doudrop for a clean 1-2-3 and a very impressive finish. Match ended in 15 minutes. Balor and Priest immediately stood by her side after the bell as Raw went off the air, emphasizing the new Judgment Day, and I always love when they do something like that. This was a great main event. I actually think it was the best WWE TV match of the entire week, which isn't saying much because really most of the matches this past week were dreadful. I went 3.5 stars and a B. As for the booking, I was surprised. I figured they would save Belair Ripley for SummerSlam or Royal Rumble, Clash at the Castle. I know she's Australian, but there's a lot of Australian people in the United Kingdom, and a lot of WWE talent from Australia starts working at NXT UK. So I thought like that could be something, or even WrestleMania. Belair Ripley, I thought would be the match. I guess also this is just their first meeting though, this go around, and Money in the Bank is a big show, even though it got moved. I just figured Bliss or Doudrop would be a better challenger here because neither of them need to be in the Money in the Bank match, but at least it wasn't Liv. I've said many times she needs to be the one to win Money in the Bank, and maybe she should even be the favorite going into that match. But this was very entertaining, and Belair Ripley is a huge women's championship booking. I love that. This is a easy good.
I made the comment on our Hell in a Cell reaction show that, when everybody's there, you can make the case that WWE's women's division is better than its men's division. And this main event was an example of it. You could just throw 4 really talented women out there and they put on a banger of a match, and it's what it was. And, you can say things like, Rhea Bianca SummerSlam. Do you want to save it? Do these kinds of things. I wanted Rhea to win this match as it was going on, because I said, I think they've really got momentum here with the Judgment Day, what they just did. Like, they just said she wants to go for the title, so just do it. Just go for it. Like, really hammer this home. Don't have her lose, and then she's got to make her way back to do it. Just go with it. Just go with the Judgment Day right now, and that's what Rhea.
That's a good point.
Says to me right there. So I Rhea Bianca can be a Trish Lita rivalry. They're going to be doing this for a long time. In the future between the two of them. So I think that's perfectly fine. And so, yeah, this was a great setup, a great match, a great finish, the finish I wanted. And now I'm really intrigued by this match. If it was Bianca Bliss or something like that, I think we all know who would have won. I'm legitimately curious if Rhea wins this match. And we really love all the people in the new Judgment Day. Want them to start taking over stuff. Want them to start running the ship. That's what I said the Judgment Day needed to be. They needed to be just kind of running Raw, running over people and
Absolutely.
Stuff like that. And that's exactly what they did here. So I thought this was great.
That's a fantastic point. Even though to me, it's not a faction because it's not 4 people or more. They booked them in that final hour of Raw like it was a faction. They had the big moment. That was the biggest moment really of the entire show. And then they ended the entire show with Judgment Day in the ring, lording over. Previously in the show, there was a guarantee that Rhea Ripley would be the next Raw Women's Champion. So every individual part of this really came together. And you make a really good point that if you're going to have that type of big moment, you need to go with them. So yeah, I didn't think that Ripley winning was the wrong booking. It just surprised me. I really thought it would be Bliss or Doudrop. But based on the way you kind of broke it down, I think it makes a lot of sense for them to do this. And you are right. I did also mention it earlier. These two, Belair and Ripley, they are legitimately going to fight forever. They're them along with Raquel Gonzalez. They are that next version of women's talent that has come in. You had the 4 horsewomen. Certainly you had others individually, Alexa Bliss and Asuka, that have come in as well. But this is the next kind of, group of top tier women's talent in WWE that is truly going to make a name for themselves, main event WrestleManias, main event pay-per-views, and carry the water for the entire division. So they are going to fight a lot. Hopefully they add to that, and instead of 3, it becomes 4, 5, or 6 over the coming months or year, 2 years. But as of right now, that trio is clearly being pushed hard. Bianca Belair, of course, harder than all of them. And it's working because all of them to this point are already over, and that's fantastic. Now, Chris, while I really enjoyed what we got from that number 1 contendership on Raw, we had the exact same booking Friday on SmackDown, and I wanted to cover it second here on The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly because I wanted to provide a stark contrast between the way Raw was booked and the way SmackDown was booked, which was Raquel Rodriguez, Natalya, Shayna Baszler, Shotzi, Aaliyah, and Xia Li instead of a fatal 4-way like Raw in a 6-pack challenge. Ronda Rousey sat ringside for what was the mid-show main event, and the concept was that the 6-pack challenge was her idea. It turns out Shotzi locked Aaliyah in the locker room. As she demanded for the referee to ring the bell, Aaliyah ran in and attacked her. There were a ton of quick early near falls, which immediately told me, as soon as that happens, it's going to be an unnecessarily short match. Mm-hmm. Shotzi took Baszler out with a DDT. Xia took Shotzi out with a kick. Natalya took Xia out with a lariat. Rodriguez hit Natty with a big boot, then suplexed Shotzi over the ring apron onto her before hitting a spinning Vader bomb. Shotzi ate a Tahana bomb, but Shayna put Rodriguez in the Kirifuda clutch as Natalya covered for the win in 4 minutes. Now, I tweeted before the match that they would obviously have Natalya win, even though it should be Shotzi or Xia, and that's exactly what happened. And when I said it should be Shotzi or Xia, I kind of wasn't thinking about Money in the Bank. So as long as Shotzi is in the Money in the Bank match, then I don't particularly care that she didn't win this. But the fact that they did a 6-pack challenge, mid-show main event, number 1 contendership, and had it go 4 minutes was straight up pathetic. Again, contrast it with Raw. The Raw match went 11 minutes longer and was 11 times more entertaining, with all 4 women getting over. No one on SmackDown in this match got over. Everything about this was completely predictable and disappointing. The only positive was they did not have Baszler win because Rousey against Baszler is going to be a huge match whenever that eventually happens. How the hell could a match with 6 women going for a title shot not last at least 8, 9, 10 minutes? Again, this is a microcosm of the creative differences between Raw and SmackDown. Everyone got over in 15 minutes on Raw. No one got over in 4 minutes on SmackDown. This was so ugly.
I hate this. I hate this crap. Stop with the crap.
So last week, I think it was, when Shotzi went person by person in the locker room to explain why they all deserve to be in the title mix, I was like, oh, that's a good step forward where we're not treating the women like a joke, where we're trying to build them all up here, rebuild up the SmackDown women's division here. This is a good step forward. And then we get this. And then we get a 4-minute match where you don't really need to pay attention to any of them. Aaliyah getting stuck in the locker room, despite there being cameras on both sides of the door, something that Pat McAfee even mentioned. I don't know if it was clear if there was a key needed or what, but it was a weird situation. Natty's gear, did it look like Owen Hart to you? Did it remind you of Owen Hart? the caution tape level of era of Owen Hart.
I didn't notice at all. I'll look at
that was my first. It was like a lot of actual. You would describe it as actual yellow, but a bunch of stripes. It just made me think of Owen Hart. I don't know if it was on purpose or not, but it jumped out. This was 4 minutes. I did enjoy it for what it was. I didn't watch SmackDown Live. You had tweeted about it being 4 minutes and being really down on it. So I had, I think, low expectations going in before watching it. It wasn't entertaining 4 minutes, but yeah, you would have liked to, a number one contender match. Give these women some respect. Give them some time. SmackDown is just time and time again, just not helping anybody with their booking. So I'm going to give it a bad instead of an ugly, because I at least liked what they did in that short period of time. But yeah, this is a real shame after, thoughts that they were going to build it up into something. And so the idea that there's going to be some women's tag team tournament, to replace the champions from Sasha and Naomi, I think the booking on SmackDown here tells you maybe not so much.
Especially when you put Natalya in the title match, and then and one of the teams that you kind of still have is Natalya and Baszler. Maybe I'm not saying that they can't just do it after Money in the Bank, but they said that there's going to be a women's tag team championship tournament or whatever coming soon. Hasn't really started yet, so it's a little strange. Now, I did look at Natalya's gear. I was stalling a little bit so I could go through the slideshow to get there. I see what you're getting at with the Owen Hart throwback. I don't think that was the purpose of it. If it had said caution on it, and by the way, that gear was classic. What Owen had.
Yes.
If it had done that, then I would have said, oh my God, that's really cool that she did it. But this was actually a very pale yellow. And it's just I just think it's a style of the gear. I don't think it's.
Yeah, it might be. It just, I thought of that, coming off the Owen Cup. I don't know, it came to mind. It was interesting. I was curious what you thought.
For sure. All right, let's keep going with SmackDown. New Day opened SmackDown thanking Drew McIntyre for helping them overcome the Brawling Brutes. Drew entered and gave a shout out to Big E, which got a huge Big E chant from the crowd. That was nice. McIntyre then said he would win the WWE Undisputed Universal Championship, and I'm using the way he said it. I told you, everyone screws it up, at Clash at the Castle, which is like 3 months away at this point. They made a couple Big D sex jokes. Then he got a Big D kilt as a birthday gift. And yes, the Brutes came out. Sheamus said being surprised by McIntyre last week was unfair. They wanted another shot. Butch couldn't control himself and ran down to attack, only to get tossed outside by the faces. And then we got the main event from last week, rematch, as the opener of SmackDown. Drew Day against the Brutes. Kofi Kingston got a good hot tag. McIntyre took Butch down outside. New Day hit Stereo Tope con Heroes, and Xavier Woods grabbed Pat McAfee's headset to celebrate. McIntyre's hot tag came later. He cleared house. Sheamus botched what was supposed to be like a toss belly to belly. Butch then ate one with Woods hitting a rack attack style move for a near fall. Kofi and Holland botched something outside. I'm not sure what it was. McIntyre ate a running knee and a bro kick from Sheamus. Woods got distracted by Sheamus, and Butch hit bitter end for the win. This opening segment was going really, really well. Like, great, actually, until the Brutes came out. This was the 12th time in 13 weeks that at least one New Day member fought at least one Brutes member. And Xavier Woods, after SmackDown, tweeted something about 14 weeks in a row, them dealing with each other. I think because it started with that like ATV type of deal or whatever. So maybe my numbers are off. I think his were off, but whatever. It's been 13, 14 weeks. It's just mind-numbing, repetitive booking at this point. Completely maddening. We had a perfectly good endpoint last week. It was done. And then they rematched it to do 50-50 booking and extend this shit at least one more week because it's going to happen next week. But now it feels like it's going to be 3 more months all the way to Clash at the Castle. I mean, what the fuck are we doing here? Why can these guys not move on and do something different? It's been 3 months. Big E is not coming back anytime soon. Despite my anger, the segment gets a good because there was nothing wrong with what was delivered on television. The promos were good. Drew was funny. The match was high quality. Butch got another win. It was a clean finish. All of that's really good. So I'm going to give it a good to my surprise, but there's absolutely no defending the booking and creative here. This shit is like missionary position.
It's the same thing over and over and over. It's like missionary position every single night. and the tribal chief, the head of the table. We're not interested in that. No.
I'm not interested. I'm done. I want it over.
I am done with this. I'm not even going to talk about it. I'm making a stand here. Okay. I'm refusing to talk about New Day versus the Brutes on this podcast. I'm not going to say anything about it. I'm not going to grade it. I'm done with it. I can't do this anymore. There's nothing to say. I'm not grading it. It's nothing. When I saw it on my screen, I was like, all right, I'm blacking out here. I'm refusing to acknowledge that this is happening.
Let me give you a different. Oh, sorry. I was going to say I'll give you a different topic if you want to talk about something else.
No, what I did want to mention was the Clash at the Castle announcement.
That's what I was going to bring up. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, that is relevant to a lot of things. He had kind of already announced it, when he made the trip over there. He tweeted like, "I'm looking forward to competing for the Universal Championship here," or whatever like that. So it seemed to be heading this way. I get it. I don't mind it. I just wish they would have put a little more into it. Maybe like Vince makes the announcement or something like that, or just something to kind of like set it up a little bit differently. But the idea that Drew gets a title shot at Clash of the Castle because they're in the United Kingdom, I'm actually I don't mind it. I just think they could have made it feel like a little bigger of a deal as opposed to preempting another New Day versus Brutes segment.
Well, here's my problem with it. It's 92 days away.
Yeah.
3 months. The shit is selling. Like, I don't understand why you would do this. It'd be one thing if he said, when that show happens, I can't wait to go back to the United Kingdom. I want to fight for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship. He said he is. Not only does that basically mean that he's going to have that match in 92 days or 92 days from Friday, but he's deciding actively not to do anything important until then. He's not going to try for Money in the Bank. He's not going to try to get a title shot sooner. It's indicating to your audience as well that Roman Reigns, and look, man, we know Reigns is probably holding the title through the summer. I gave a couple options earlier about how they could take it off of him towards the end, but more likely than not, Reigns is going to have the championship at this show, Clash at the Castle. It's telling your audience that nothing you do with Reigns between now and then matters because it's clearly going to be Reigns and McIntyre at that show. I know they want to sell the show. He could have guaranteed he would be in the main event or that he planned on challenging for the title rather than saying that he just decided he would and it's going to happen. It's insane to me that they had him go out and cut a promo like that.
So for one thing that came to mind about like such an announcement like this was The Rock announcing on Raw 1000, I think, that he was going to be fighting for the WWE Championship at the Royal Rumble the following year. It was in the summer. They announced it for the Rumble. That was six maybe months in advance. But that was The Rock who, can get that spot. And you knew he wasn't going to be there every week. Drew McIntyre is going to be here every week. I'm wondering, the last reports we'd seen, they had sold 40,000 tickets to the show early on. I don't know if they felt like they needed to do this to up the ticket sales. I mean, especially in light of moving the Las Vegas Money in the Bank show. That could be a factor in it there.
Let me quickly interject just because I don't want to forget to talk about it. So WWE had more pre-sale requests for tickets than could have filled the stadium twice. I think it was 90,000, some crazy number. But what they did was by the time they went on sale, the tickets were so overpriced, and apparently also in the United Kingdom, they have I don't know if they use Ticketmaster or they use something that's even worse that charges even greater fees, like a percentage of the ticket, something like that. So the expense for people going to the show was so massive that everyone expected they would sell out right away because of the pre-sale requests, but they didn't. So the expectation is that they're going to sell out the show, but they basically just need to drop the ticket prices, which they will do as it gets closer. But to your point, yes, they did not sell out the show initially on the on sale, which initially they thought they would.
Okay, that's good to know. So that could be a factor in it as well. To your point that Drew McIntyre doesn't need to compete in anything else, I'm generally, I'm okay with that. Like, you don't need him in Money in the Bank. Frankly, the idea that someone has a guaranteed shot coming up later, I like that general idea. He doesn't need to be in the Money in the Bank. What he does need to do, though, is to find something else to do in the meantime that's not hang around with the New Day. Like, you're going to have to build this guy up before that Clash of the Castle match. Give him a big win over somebody at SummerSlam. Give him a big win over somebody at Money in the Bank. So he's really on a roll going into this Roman Reigns match. That's why I think my biggest concern is, to your point.
I mean, what I'm thinking is that this feud goes another month and it winds up with Sheamus McIntyre at SummerSlam. Like, that's where I think they're probably going with this. They're going to maybe do a stipulation with these 6 guys at Money in the Bank in 4 weeks and then continue it another 4 weeks and have McIntyre Sheamus. But again, that's 2 more months of the same 6 people fighting in different combinations. And I know Drew technically just got added, so you could argue that it's been refreshed a little bit and that Butch got added and that got refreshed at that time. But no, it's the same thing. It is missionary position. It's boring. I know that it gets pops on TV. And maybe because of that, WWE just shrugs and says, you know what? They love the New Day. They love Drew, and Sheamus and the Brawling Brutes are great foils for them. And you know what? They are pretty decent foils for them because there's actually a real life thing that happened that made it legitimate. But we're done. It's been 14 weeks. I cannot stomach 8 more. Can you imagine this going 21 weeks, nearly half a year?
What if they literally run this until Big E comes back?
Oh, it's unknown when Big E's coming back. So that means
I know
2024 this could go until. Like, it's just absolute. And by the way, now there's undisputed champions, right? So shouldn't you have Holland and Butch become a team? You have New Day as a team. It's the Usos. You know, if they hold those titles all the way,
if you
forget about SummerSlam, WrestleMania, New Day, Usos, undisputed championships, like, dude, I'm floored.
Yep. A lot of fun things you could do that they're just not doing.
Okay, let's stay on this negative path here because I got to talk about what happened on Raw. We had Becky Lynch against Dana Brooke in a singles match. No problem there. But as soon as the bell rang, the 24/7 folks ran down immediately right after the bell. Brooke rolled up Akira Tozawa to win the title. Lynch grabbed the mic and said no one wins titles in her matches except her, and demanded their match restart for a championship match for the 24/7 title before threatening everyone at ringside. So this actually became a 24/7 title match with Becky Lynch. And in that moment so far, I want to make it clear, I was okay with it. Okay?
Me too. I was actually really interested.
Very interested. I thought she might win this title. This could be pretty cool.
Yeah, I was like, there's so many things you could do with this. Like,
so many things.
Yeah, I'm like actually excited.
Okay. Then she hits a Beck-sploder when Asuka enters. Becky hits another one, nearly gets rolled up via distraction. Dana misses a high-risk move and counters the manhandle slam into a pinning combination with Asuka holding Becky's leg, I believe, under the ropes, which, by the way, should have been a kick out, right, if the referee saw it, for the upset win in 2 minutes and 45 seconds. Now, I don't care about the interference excuse. This was absolutely atrocious creative. It was terrible booking in every possible way. If you are going to do this, it has to have one of 2 outcomes. Either Becky wins the 24/7 title and becomes a delusional champion character, thinking she's far above everyone else in the division and company. She tries to elevate the 24/7 title into something because she's deluded, and she continues feuding with Asuka, not necessarily over the title, but she says, I'm a better champion, like basically doing what Carmelo Hayes does on NXT. I'm the A champion. I'm the main women's champion, not Bianca Belair. And she does that character where she's completely deluded and full of herself. Or she's so upset that she goes ballistic after losing, tears apart the ringside area, the women's locker room, throws a fit, walks out, with her luggage. They had the, cries into the camera, all that type of stuff. Instead, they had the top woman in the company lose in a 3-minute segment that wasn't even entertaining, and she did nothing about it. She changed her Twitter to a black avatar and a black background, and she removed her bio. That's what she's done. The lone positive is that Becky Asuka seems to be continuing in a non-title feud, which we talked about on the Hell in a Cell Instant analysis. I badly wanted to happen. But other than that, this was straight up ugly.
0.0. 0.0, Mr. Blutarski.
Yeah, again, when the 24 when Becky says, I want to fight for this title right now, I was really excited. I was like, I think this was the second segment of the show. We had just gotten the Cody Seth thing, and then this, and I was like, oh man, this Raw's on fire right now. This is like going to be a really great episode of Raw. And then Asuka's music hits, and I was like, oh no, oh no, we're gonna do this, aren't we? And they faked you out with the fake interference roll up, whatever that they normally do. But then they did it, and then they got to the end result anyway. And I was just like, God, nah, giving this an ugly for sure. Just another, like, they so often they're like, hey, we could actually do something interesting with the 24/7 title. And then immediately go, nah, we're not going to do that.
They get halfway there, and then they pull the rug out. Yep.
Like, God, imagine if Becky's a 24/7 champion and she starts saying this is the most important belt in the company, and it's a fake kind of title that her and Asuka can fight over, or
not even that.
Or whatever.
She's propping it up as this most important title. You have the R-Truth, Akira Tozawa, the shenanigans going on.
Yeah.
And she's just like wiping them away and like kicking their asses.
Yeah.
So she is dominating some people, and she's beating both men and women.
Ugh,
but she's
I'm gonna cry thinking about all the possibilities we had here. Like,
but she's I thought I said something wrong. But she's simultaneously holding up this title and making a big deal about it. And you can run that storyline for 2 months probably if you want.
Yeah.
At least 4 to 6 weeks. Instead we got what we got.
Yeah, just a real missed opportunity. Instead, to just go back to the same formulaic stuff you always do instead of doing something a little bit different that would have been a lot of fun. The John Cena U.S. title open challenge is still talked about to this day. Mm-hmm. I got a tweet about the other day about they need to do something like that again. Like, you can have these big superstars elevate these other titles. I know the 24/7 title doesn't mean anything, but it could mean something for a month. Well, like you could just take a chance and do something interesting with it. God,
it's not even about, that's the thing though. Like, okay, would it have elevated it? Sure. But it's not even about elevating the title. It's a gimmick. It's a prop for her to utilize in a character situation.
Yeah. The U.S. title opens.
And you know what, dude? And at the end of it, you don't even have her lose the title. She throws it in the garbage. Like she gets a women's championship match and she just says, okay, I don't need this anymore. Or something like that.
You know what you do? You have Asuka roll her up one day for it. And then she just gives it to R-Truth or something like that. And that makes her furious. Instead, Becky should not be freaking out about not winning the 24/7 title. She should be freaking out about losing the title after having had it. Ugh.
Or just freaking out about Asuka costing her a match against Dana. And again, she wanted the title match. Like, they did all of that correct. Yeah. So she did lose. So she did lose another title match, and her downward spiral continued, these are all things we hoped would happen. We talked about it. So I'm actually not, I don't hate the general idea of it. It's just, if they were going to have her lose, she needed to freak the hell out, and she didn't, or you have her win. So they just didn't sell it. That was the biggest issue.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
This next one we don't need to grade, but it's something we need to talk about. Ricochet versus Gunther was set for the Intercontinental Championship this upcoming week on SmackDown. Ricochet said he was confident that there's no one better than him in the ring and that he would come out of next week still the champion. Ludwig Kaiser said the title is important all over the world and Ricochet's time is up. Gunther then promised he would become the new champion. Like I said, no grade here, but this will be the end of what may well be the worst Intercontinental Championship reign in history. This is no fault of Ricochet, by the way, because he's a good champion, an appropriate champion, and fans cheer for him and like him. They gave him the title and did absolutely nothing with him. He beat Sami Zayn, who's the guy he beat for the title. He just beat him a second time. And then it was, okay, let's start a storyline. They had him beat Jinder Mahal, who is a nothing low-carder. They had him beat Shanky, who hadn't even had a singles match on the main roster on television in his entire career. They had him beat Shanky, and that's it. That's all they did with him as Intercontinental Champion. Now Gunther is going to take it. And by the way, he should. And he's the appropriate person to beat Ricochet. But Ricochet is going to go right back to the lower card. Chris, I had cautious optimism. Given the way they booked him against Sammy, it made a lot of sense. They gave him the title. They took it off Sammy before WrestleMania. I'm sure Ricochet will be in the Money in the Bank match. I'm sure he will flash in it. But this felt to me like the last chance to ever hope that they would do something with him. They used him completely as a transitional champion, and a terrible transitional champion at that.
Yeah, I mean, I had told you not to get your hopes up. I'm long past the idea that they'll do anything with Ricochet. I was happy he won the Intercontinental title. I thought there's some fun things you could do with this. They're not going to make him a big deal, but you can make him look cool, let him do his thing, get him over a bit. Maybe it helps up down the road, but they didn't even do that. Like, you call it the worst. You call it the worst title reign of all time. I don't know about history, but it might be the worst transitional run of all time because the guy didn't even get to do what he does. Like, how do you not have Ricochet go out every week and put on some banger matches that are really fun to really get people behind him? How do you have Ricochet and not let him be Ricochet, man?
It's
like
crazy.
This has been the whole issue with him on the main roster. About one of the most memorable things he's done was when he got to have those 2 or 3 matches with John Morrison. They got to recreate Lucha Underground and just tear the Thunderdome down. And it was so good the first time that they let him do it again. Like, it's so obvious what Ricochet's strengths are and aren't, and they just refuse to lean into that. The dude's very talented in a lot of things. Let him do that. Gunther's going to win, and it'll be a worthy champion.
Absolutely.
Kind of. I mean,
he will elevate the hell out of the Intercontinental
He will elevate the main roster if they let him beat people that are more than Ricochet and Jobbers and Gulak. That's the problem, is that he hasn't beaten anybody of note on the main roster.
That's the problem. They don't have anybody of note on that show.
No, they do not.
That's the problem.
That's the issue. That's the issue that's going to happen with Gunther. Is this IC title going to be elevated? He's got to beat people in order to elevate it, and I don't know if they can. So that's what we got to wait and see.
And that's why you need. That's why you need like the Cesaros, right? Like, I know he's not there anymore right now, and maybe they bring him back, whatever. But that's why you need your Cesaros, your Shinsuke Nakamura's, Corbin and Moss no longer feuding with each other. Moss is a totally legitimate now Intercontinental title challenger who can lose to Gunther, right? Like, he's totally Sheamus, Kofi.
Yes. That's
Xavier,
exactly what Sheamus and Kofi should be doing, not all this stuff with each other.
Exactly. Yes. They need to. Butch is someone who he can fight. And by the way, that match would be an absolute banger. Holland, like, these are all people who can be separated out and get these individual matches with Gunther, except they just don't do it. If he goes and just beats Jinder Mahal and Ricochet a second time, in a month from now, then we're going to be looking at it the same way, where we're like, okay, he does elevate the championship because he is who he is, but that's it. You got to have, like, when John Cena and Daniel Bryan had the U.S. Championship and the Intercontinental Championship, they did legitimately elevate the titles because they fought and they defeated people. They got to do the same thing with him.
Yes, I think there was was it a Cody Rhodes John Cena match at the time? I feel like I remember that, but like, that was the whole point of that was kind of like, again, with the 24/7 title we just mentioned. The point of the gimmick of Cena having the U.S. title was to get him in matches with new people and elevate those people. That's what you should be doing.
Absolutely. We have 7 segments left. We're going to get through these, not 7 segments, 7 topics to get through. We will do it hopefully lightning round style and get out of here. Bobby Lashley said Omos and MVP are in his rearview mirror. He wondered what was next when Theory complained that Lashley was stealing his time in Spotlight. Theory said he won his title on his own while Lashley needed help from MVP. Theory wanted a selfie. Lashley wanted a match. And then he wanted a United States Championship match. Theory said he didn't deserve it despite all the people he's beaten. Lashley then literally booted Theory's ass out of the ring, kicked him in the ass and pushed him out of the ring. So this is one of those segments that it wasn't well done, but the promos didn't make much sense. Theory confronting a beast like Lashley is really silly for a heel to do, even one who's really confident. But the overall concept of Lashley going after the United States Championship is a great one because it needs to be reestablished as a major championship, just like we're talking about with the Intercontinental title. But Raw very badly needs this to be reestablished because Reigns refuses to show up on Monday night. So there's not really a good reason not to re-elevate the U.S. title. So I'm giving this a good for the booking, even if the writing was a little bit poor. And I will admit, I did laugh at the very end when Lashley booted Theory out of the ring. But this is a good example of doing it the right way. Like, Theory is also potentially a transitional United States champion if they have Lashley win, which I have to imagine they will. But Theory had a real championship defense against a legitimate challenger in a long-term storyline. Was it a great storyline with Mustafa Ali? No, it was not. But he at least defended it against him and beat him clean on a pay-per-view, on a premium live event. The opposite of what happened with Ricochet. So I'm positive here, and I will give this a good.
Yeah, I'll give this a good. And I think my prediction of where this goes is Lashley beats Theory for the U.S. title at Money in the Bank, and then Theory goes on to fight Cena at SummerSlam, which we kind of mentioned earlier. So that's my prediction on how it plays out, and that's not a bad spot to be in. So I think it's a very interesting physical dynamic between the two. I don't think we've seen Theory go up against a big guy like Lashley before. So I'm intrigued. I'm giving it a good.
All right. So following this, we had Omos against Cedric Alexander. Omos hit his tree slam and won in 13 seconds. You have Akira Tozawa and Reggie on this roster. If you want to squash someone, squash them. Squash a local talent. Cedric had a really nice moment with Lashley at Hell in a Cell. And we talked on the instant analysis. We were like, hey, they could turn this into something like a little mid-card thing, them becoming a tag team, actually reforming the Hurt Business under Lashley's leadership. When Shelton Benjamin is healthy and comes back, adding someone else to it. There's a million different things they could have done. And instead, they beat him in 13 seconds. Again, 13 seconds. Then the Dirty Dogs get introduced to the Gene Okerlund area with Kevin Patrick right after the bell. And they start cutting a promo, Dolph Ziggler. MVP was pissed that they interrupted. Ziggler super kicked him from the stage that sent him into Omos's arms. And then all four guys disappeared backstage. So after the horrible shit with Cedric, this is how you bring back the Dogs. I'm not saying that they needed some grand entrance, but this is what you do with them. Probably in a spot that's going to lead to Omos beating both of them in a handicap match. I bet you that's what happens. Yeah. Fuck this shit to hell. It was absolutely horrible. I gotta say, Chris, I know you like the guy. No one gives a shit about Omos.
That is one big pile of shit.
Yeah, no, I like the potential of Omos. I have said basically since the entire AJ Styles tag team that they haven't used him the right way, and still the case. I told you on Sunday, I don't know if it was pre-show or post-show Hell in the Cell show, that when MVP said to Cedric Alexander that the Hurt Business is never coming back, that it was a message from WWE to fans that it is never coming back. And I think that's what we got with here. Disappointing because they gave us that Cedric Bobby Lashley segment after on Hell in a Cell where Cedric's like, all right, I'm going to go do my own thing now. I'm going to get back to kind of where I was. And I'm like, okay, like there's going to be something here. Nope, he's not doing that. And then the Gene Okerlund area, I really like that they're doing that again. I think it's a cool setup for a thing. But yeah, weird spot to bring back the Dirty Dogs, all the setup, that whole deal. And I agree 100% that this is setting up for Omos to beat them 1-on-2, which will continue to do nothing for Omos. And round and round we go. So I'm giving this one an ugly.
Yeah, it sure feels like it's going to be like Omos over Ziggler, Omos over Rude, Omos over Rude and Ziggler.
Yes.
Like somehow. And that's incredibly disappointing. Ezekiel versus Otis. We got a singles match. Zeke won with a crucifix driver in a couple minutes. Then he called out Kevin Owens for a rematch next week. KO said Zeke doesn't deserve a rematch, but he'll generously give him one only if he finally admits that he's Elias. Zeke said he admits it. KO said he wanted to hear the whole thing right to his face. Zeke said, I admit my name is Elias. KO lost his mind with happiness. And then Zeke said, hey, Kev, I actually took a page out of your own playbook. I lied. I am Ezekiel, Elias's younger brother. Then he hit a jumping knee to end the segment. So, in terms of a grade, this was almost good because of the post-match stuff. But it's so incredibly frustrating that they're going to 50-50 book this for no reason whatsoever. Why can't Owens just have won a feud against a mid-carder and moved on? Why is this so difficult? I may have found this more enjoyable if it did not come immediately after the Omos Cedric Alexander squash. Why not allow these two guys, Zeke and Otis, to go 6-7 minutes instead of 2 to 3? The fact that WWE keeps these storylines going for months and months on end, it actively makes the product worse. I think, am I wrong, that KO has basically been doing this since WrestleMania?
Literally the
night after.
Raw after Mania, yeah.
So 60 days, basically, this has been going down. That is insane. So because it's lazy and it's unenjoyable at this point, I was fine with it up until Hell in a Cell. That was the perfect endpoint. The fact that it is continuing, just like the Brawling Brutes New Day, with Drew McIntyre, had a definitive ending last Friday on SmackDown. These two stories, the fact that they're continuing, is absolutely absurd. So I'm giving it a bad, even though, yes, the Kevin Owens and Ezekiel interaction was again funny because Kevin Owens is really funny.
Yeah, I'm giving it a light good because of that, because I did enjoy the segment overall. And I did also call that that this is probably going to be a rematch after Hell in a Cell. We'd probably get a rematch the day after Hell in a Cell. I think I said Ezekiel wins Hell in a Cell, and then we get a rematch and Kevin Owens wins on Raw or something like that. So it's not quite playing out that way, but it kind of is playing out that way. Next week should be the end of it. Like there's no point to this anymore. Kevin Owens, I thought the end point was Kevin Owens basically realizing, okay, he's never going to admit it, but I just kicked your ass and I'm going to call you Elias and you can't do anything about it because I kicked your ass. And Kevin Owens sold this very well to get the rematch. And I appreciated Ezekiel saying before he revealed the lie, I appreciated him checking, saying, hey, we have the rematch, right? Yes. Okay, I lied. Like that was an important step to make in the promo, and they made it. Giving this a light good, but yeah, I'm about done with this now. There's nowhere else for it to go. He's clearly not going to reveal it. I could very well see this continuing on, though. I could see a situation where you get some video of Elias on the Jumbotron that distracts Kevin Owens and Ezekiel wins, and on we go. I hope not, but again, there's nowhere else to really go with this. So I hope it ends next week. Yeah,
but if it's going to end with Zeke winning in 50-50 booking, I mean, if it ends, it ends at some. But that should not be like.
The problem is, if it ends with Ezekiel saying he's not Ezekiel, then what is the character anymore?
The enjoyable part of wrestling to me shouldn't be, thank God that feud finally ended.
Correct.
It should be, it ended well. And it did end well at Hell in a Cell. 50-50 booking it and putting Ezekiel over next week, it will be, well, thank heaven that it ended, but I'm not going to be thrilled with what I got because he's going to get a win for no reason.
Right. It was fine. Basically, the feud ended at Hell in a Cell with them essentially agreeing to disagree, and Kevin Owens would moved on because at least he kicked his ass over it. That was a good end point. So let's hope we get one next week.
All right. Dominic Mysterio fought Veer Mahan. And by the way, this is all happening in that middle 90 minutes of Raw that I told you I hated. So this is what I was talking about when I said that the show really pissed me off in the middle of the program. So Mysterio and Veer. Veer cut a promo backstage like a normal human, which was nice. He didn't growl. So maybe the lion, and I know they still call him the Lion of Raw, but the growling, I think, stopped. And I didn't notice it in the match either. So that's a positive. Dom mocked Veer, made him chase him around the ring. Veer soon caught him with a standing splash and later threw Dom into Ray outside. Dom tripped Veer into the middle turnbuckle, dodged him into the post, and hit a frog splash for a 1 count. But Veer caught Dom with the $1 Million Arm, and he was setting up for the cervical clutch when Ray drop kicked him for a disqualification in 9 minutes and 30 seconds. And then he hit the 619 outside the ring with Veer not even falling down. The crowd popped for the frog splash, but this match straight up sucked. The wrestling was awful. It felt repetitive, and I get Ray protecting his son, but it's not like Veer was illegally attacking him or using a weapon after the bell or anything like that. Ray interfered in normal competition for no reason whatsoever. So the logic doesn't even make sense. Dom doesn't need protecting there. He has to be able to wrestle. So there wasn't even a good booking reason to do it. I just thought this was bad in every conceivable way.
I'm giving it a bad, but I at least understood the story they were going for. I agree. I really liked that Veer promo. Oh, he can talk. He's not growling. He sounds like a normal person. He's very well spoken. Like you said, like this Veer in a suit that he portrays on social media, it could be a really interesting character that they're just not doing. So hopefully they are transitioning away from him being a personality-less monster and being an actual person. I don't know. The idea and commentary sold it well. That Rey Mysterio was just tired of seeing Dominic get his ass kicked and possibly get hurt, that he just had enough and he had to go in there and do it. You don't see that very often from faces. So I appreciate the story. But overall, there wasn't much else there. This has kind of been going on for a while. I guess we'll do Rey Veer now. I'm giving it a light bad, but I at least understood what they were going for.
Max Dupree interrupted Pierce to say he scoured the roster and found his first client. Pierce asked for the name, but Dupree in his face said that was a little bit invasive, which I popped so hard for that. Like doing the close talking and then saying Pierce was being invasive. So good. He promised it would be revealed next week on SmackDown. Dragging this out, if they are going to unveil like Mace as that client, it's going to be a disappointment for the crowd. And in 2022, all of their dark match stuff has been leaked for months already. But I will admit that he's making me laugh, and the close talking stuff is working in a major way. There's another element to this. I just want to call this good.
This was funny. Him and Pierce are really good back and forth. And like, obviously you don't want this to continue on forever. You want Max Dupree to go on to do other things, but I would love to just continue some of these segments because the back and forth between Pierce and Max Dupree, they got a good chemistry going there. I like it. I've been on board with this so far, so it's been good so far.
All right. There was a Lacey Evans vignette on SmackDown showing the one promo segment she got on Raw. She is officially back on the SmackDown roster after missing the announced Memorial Day in-ring return that was supposed to happen last Monday. We noted how it truly made zero sense for them to move her to Raw in the first place. And now she's back with all of the momentum of those video packages completely gone. I mean, I never liked them at all. You did, others did to some degree. But now they've wasted that momentum. We've forgotten about her to some degree. I know they aired the promo, but now she's going to come back and I guess have her first match. This is bad, not her fault, creative's fault, booking's fault, game planning, all of that. Really freaking bad.
Yes, it's bad and 100% not her fault at all. Like, how do you put all this work into these promos for like 4 or 5 weeks and then not have the plan and then just like back out of the plan that you invested all this time? And these are the kinds of things that make it very hard to stick with characters in WWE because you can see in real time them either pull the rug out or completely change something, and you can never fully feel like they're going to pay something off for you. Like, I liked those promos. I think they did too many of them, but I liked those promos and the style and telling us her real life story and all the shit she's had to go through. Like, it was really good, but it's been a few weeks since we've seen them now. And I don't want to say they completely wasted them, but they really, really took a lot of momentum out of her sales. You know, she got that entrance where we thought she was turning heel because the announcer said she wants you all to stand for her. And despite that being a little bit weird, the crowd cheered for her. The crowd was really into her. She jumped into the crowd and like they had something there. And then they switched it to Raw. Don't do Raw. Now she's back. Like, God, just freaking, I feel so bad for her to have to go through this ring around when they had something and then they just didn't do it. Like, follow through on these plans, man. Like, it's really hurting the wrestlers when you do stuff like this.
It's just so odd to be so discombobulated that you can't just figure out, hey, you know what? We want to, like, and I don't know what happened. Like, we don't know the specifics of what happened. My thought was, since they put the title on Rousey, they wanted her to be on Raw because there's a face champion, and there were more women on Raw, so she could fight more people before she had to worry about Bianca Belair, or maybe Rhea Ripley would win the title, and she could win it off Ripley. There's a million different things that they could have done. But you look at the whole thing, and you're like, well, even if They just wanted to delay it for a reason. I don't know why that reason would be. Maybe because that segment got so fucked up that we were talking about. Maybe they said, hey, we want to delay it. Then just do more vignettes. Have her come out and cut promos in front of the live crowd. Do other things before you kind of start a storyline with her. But at this point, she's coming back, we think, on Friday. I mean, that's the promotion, right? That she's going to be there Friday. I guess they're going to put her in the Money in the Bank match. I assume that's what the move is. But man, this is just really bad. And then lastly, we had Humberto against Jinder Mahal. Shanky was dancing in gorilla position and Jinder warned him to be more serious. So he only danced when Jinder's back was turned. Mahal got a big kick on Humberto and then got distracted by Shanky barely dancing outside. Humberto rolled him up, but the referee was distracted by Shanky. So Jinder rolled him up for the win in 3 minutes. Jinder then walked away from Shanky dancing after the bell. So he did it for the ring announcer, who eventually got up and danced with him. There was a little pop from the crowd, I will say. It's comedy. I know some of you may enjoy it, and that's your right. But to me, this is just truly awful and a waste of television time.
I'm bored, brother.
It's ugly.
Yeah, it's a waste of time. They at least kind of advanced it, and the idea that the dancing actually won Jinder a match was kind of creative. But this is like the lowest of low card. Like, this is just barely a step up of
it's their 24/7 stuff. It's the same thing.
Yeah, it like, is this what you think of Shanky? Like, just he's gonna dance? I don't know. Like, again, I like Jinder. I think there's a lot of things they can do with Jinder, but they're clearly not. I don't know. I give this a bad, because there was one or two things I actually liked, but I don't care.
If the guy's good enough to be your WWE champion, even though you were forcing it for India and you had an idea of trying to do something, if he's good enough to be your WWE champion, he's good enough to be a mid-card challenger or to establish a real tag team with Shanky and try to do something in that division. Even if they are a low-card tag team that gets beat by a lot of people, at least you have bodies. Instead, they're doing this bullshit. And by the way, by doing it, Humberto and Angel, they're actually insanely talented in the ring. And they're being kind of treated the same way as Lucha House Party was treated, in that at any given time, if you need a really good match, you put them in, you give them a little push, and fans are going to react to it. But most of the time, they're going to sit in the low card, either being jobbers or winning, non-essential matches. It's very frustrating on both.
It brings everybody down. Imagine if Ricochet and Jinder had an actual feud of maybe like 2 or 3 matches that Ricochet got to look great in, and he beat a former world champion like 2 or 3 times before going up against Gunther. Like, imagine how much just better everybody would look and feel, and how much that would help the rest of the card on SmackDown. But
I did forget, by the way, that Ricochet beat Humberto and Angel in a triple threat intercontinental title match on the SmackDown before WrestleMania. So that
after having lost to both of them.
I was going to say that. So he did have that match, which was great. It was actually very entertaining. But it came after he lost to both of them individually in succession the week before to shoehorn that match into the SmackDown. So again, when talking about Ricochet and his title reign, that's how atrocious it was. It really was one of the worst intercontinental title reigns of all time. Chris, that may be true, but I think this was one of the best editions of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast of all time. I enjoyed it. I appreciate you being with us once again to break down everything that happened across SmackDown and Raw in the world of WWE. We will be back next week, same bat time, same bat channel, for another WWE episode this coming Thursday, 2 days from when this podcast gets published. We have probably a lot to talk about in the world of AEW and NXT. AEW coming off the announcement that they will be crowning a interim world champion, with a lot of stuff set to happen this Wednesday on Dynamite. And NXT coming off of what was a very highly regarded edition of In Your House as a premium live event. Very entertaining show. A lot of storylines seem to end there, unlike with the main roster apparently coming out of Hell in a Cell, although I will say most of them did end, which is nice. But still, with In Your House, it really did seem like NXT is going into its next phase of storylines, which is exciting, and we are going to find that all out Tuesday night. So again, all of that will be covered on Thursday's show. I appreciate you all listening to this episode. As we get out of here, one more reminder that the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. So head on over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave that 5-star rating on Apple. Also leave a review. Let people know how much you love the show. please do not forget to follow us on Twitter at GettingOverCast. With all of that in the books, Silver King is now going to leave you with just 3 final words. Bye for now.